Saudi Arabia wants change in country, and actually it's changing itself. Saudi Arabia is one of those countries that doesn't have any permanent river and has only 4 inches of rain a year. But it exports vegetables, fruits, dairy products, wheat all around the world. Even in the 90s, Saudi Arabia is one of the largest wheat exporter in the world. If we zoom a map in, there is something interesting going on in this country. There are a lot of huge circular greenery spread out along the desert. Even in the middle of the desert, let's put this line along the desert and cut all of that. And if you consider each circle is of 1 kilometer or 100 acres. Even in the middle of the desert, there are farmlands, more specifically central pivot irrigation farms. The sheer magnitude of agricultural projects in Saudi Arabia has been huge. For the big view, in 1960, it had 11,400 square kilometers of cultivable land area, comprising 0.5% of the country. In 2016, it has almost 35,000 square kilometers of fertile lands, which is the triple time increase in the amount of fertile land as compared to 60 years ago. 35,000 square kilometer area is just equal to the total land area for Belgium. And in past 60 years, Saudi Arabia have transformed 24,000 square kilometer of desert in fertile land into fertile soil. Then the question is how this desert country transformed big areas of barren land into fertile land? And how Saudi Arabia can produce and export agricultural products. So the story starts, first of all, when most of us think of the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, we think of scorching sun, endless ocean of sand dunes, and one of the most inhospitable climate on earth. But the case of 10,000 years old Saudi Arabia was just opposite. That time Saudi Arabia is a place of forest watered by torrential monsoon rain, just like in Saudi Asia. And you might be thinking how they got so much water to sustain large-scale farming. Now buried by the sun seed, the fossil water was trapped in the aquifers as deep as 1 kilometer below the ground, and it was accumulated during the periods of weather climates in the places in glacial epoch between 10,000 and 2 million years ago. Saudi Arabia sits on huge reservoir of not only oil but water as well. It has been pumping water from the glaciers like aquifer to enable farming. Generally, irrigation of crops is important to maintain the abundance of food for growing population. Crop irrigation and farming requires large amount of energy, which is hard and expensive to tackle. And that's why for reducing cost, we need one of the best technologies for big farm irrigations, and it's necessary for farms to conserve water and energy. It leads good water and energy management, and the best way to save it is the central pivot irrigation method, and it is recognized as one of the most effective methods to improve water distribution to farm fields. As the name suggests, central pivot irrigate in a circular pattern around a central pivot points. Pivots are capable of applying water fertilizers, chemicals, and herbicides. This versatility improves the efficiency of irrigation practices by using a single piece of machinery to perform several functions. Central pivot machinery have been used in irrigation for decades in different countries, and it increases yields and less wastewater as compared to other irrigation. And Saudi Arabia has been building central pivot irrigation for 50 years now. However, they have achieved what was an aquifer the size of Lake Erie. Since Arabian Peninsula receives very low rainfall, aquifers are not being replenished. The prevailing winds are from the west and contain almost no moisture after traversing northern Africa. Moreover, the western side of Saudi Arabia is where the mountains are, so to speak, the Arabian Sea land. Most rainfall and flows back to the sea unused. So the Saudi Arabia is suffering from a major depletion of water in the aquifer, and the risk of disintegration of agricultural as a consequence. To prevent the catastrophic, Saudi Arabia has bought agricultural land in United States, Argentina, Indonesia, and a number of Arabian countries. And Saudi Arabia is ranked as a major buyer of agricultural land in foreign countries. But there's some natural solution to make desert into agricultural land. As we highlighted how most of the rain fall on into the western slopes in Arabian Peninsula, there was an interesting experiment in Arabi area in western Saudi Arabia. They created rock terrace and check dams in the land to trap rainwater and create a stream. They also built a bat house, a pigeon house, and planted drought-resistant trees to mimic nature. The project went for about 7 years. In 2016, funding was cut, and the 2 years drought and then a 2 years drought ravaged the region. Most of the trees died out, and the whole project was in the jeopardy. But in 2018 and 2019, rain fell again. and flows through the terraces and dams that two scientists had to build. After rainfall, the whole area turned into the rich savanna. As compared to the desolate desert before the start of the projects, mountainside terraces trapped rainwater and gave life into the soil. Now it's lush and green, teeming with albedo area is a geographical fractal, meaning it follows the same pattern as all of the regions. Watershed. The entire west coast of the Arabian Peninsula characterized watershed. To 90% of the all fresh water flows to the Red Sea in flooding events without trapping or using the water. For example, all in the area, typical single flood event that flows to the sea is enough to irrigate 130 million trees for 3 years. Albedo project is the profound example on how to make a desert into savanna, thriving with the life and greeneries by harvesting and managing floodwater. If this project can be magnified to the entire west coast of the Saudi Arabia, this whole region, which is more than 30 million acres of 121,000 square kilometers, could be transformed into agricultural land. So quite significant. This area is bigger than Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, Denmark combined. It will cost billions of dollars and time, but the agricultural capacity of the Saudi Arabia could be multiplied by at least 6 times, increasing the GDP by 3 to 5% and increase of rainfalls in the region. It could trap a huge amount of CO2 gases back into ground. Okay guys, this is all that you will see. If you like the amount of knowledge and like the video, subscribe my channel, and bye bye.